and the title of my presentation is Misinformation Nation. And we will be talking about misinformation as a significant issue during the 2024 presidential election. So misinformation or fake news has become a buzzword in United States politics. But is misinformation a serious threat to the democratic process? I will argue yes. Misinformation was a significant issue during the 2024 presidential election because fake news affects citizens' perception of democracy and impacts the collective consciousness. Misinformation also encourages anti-constitutional principles such as censorship. An article titled Fake News in Democracy, written by Martin Reglitz, examines the moral relevance of misinformation and its effects on democracy. Reglitz claims that the most significant empirical studies conclude that fake news is quite ineffective in convincing people. So if people don't usually believe misinformation, then is it harmless? The answer is no. The problem with misinformation, Reglitz argues, is that people believe misinformation is believed by their fellow citizens, even if they don't believe it themselves. Misinformation creates distrust with the mainstream media, fellow citizens, and democratic institutions themselves. Fake news and election validity. The psychological power of misinformation can sow distrust in the democratic process. The belief that fellow citizens are voting on well-informed truths, even if they have political differences, is essential to trusting election outcomes. If voters believe that candidates are being elected because the public is being lied to and misled, people may start losing faith in the validity of elections. According to the Pew Research Center, misinformation can affect individual awareness based on media consumption. So here in Figure 1, we can see that before the 2020 election, Republicans who relied on Fox News talk radio were much more likely than the rest of the GOP to see voter fraud as a major problem with mail-in voting. So here we can see that Republicans who relied on Fox News saw voter fraud as a major problem. 61% saw voter fraud as a major problem, whereas Republicans who did not watch any Fox News, only 23% of them saw voter fraud as a major issue. Misinformation is a continuous threat. A transcription of a 2020 congressional subcommittee focused on elections found that election officials believe or claim that political campaigns and interest groups are spending billions of dollars to influence Americans. Foreign adversaries are amplifying our divisions and mimicking traditional voter suppression tactics to dissuade participation or provide inaccurate information about how voters can participate. Election officials also made the bold claim that election security is one of our greatest national security threats. So what do analysts have to say about misinformation in the 2024 presidential race? According to the Brookings Institute, disinformation shaped views about the candidates during the 2024 presidential election. Narratives surrounding immigration, such as hordes of migrants overrunning the country's southern border, unfairly monopolizing scarce public resources, and endangering public security, shaped how the public saw Kamala Harris as a leader and likely helped Donald Trump become the 47th president of the United States. However, facts show that immigrants actually commit less crimes than United States citizens. The Brookings Institute also brought up how the U.S. economy is the envy of the world, yet voters had a dismal view of the economy and rated Harris negatively for the economic situation. Communication technologies were vital in shaping voter perception of important issues in the 2024 presidential race. So what is the solution to this problem according to the Brookings Institute? Censorship, or in their own words, there needs to be meaningful content moderation by social media platforms. And now we have come to the issue of censorship. In a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray on July 20th, 2023, the House Judiciary Committee expressed concerns about the Bureau's censorship of an issue that could have affected the 2020 presidential election. A laptop belonging to President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, was discovered and found to have incriminating evidence. The FBI is accused of grooming social media platforms to believe this information was actually Russian disinformation and thereby encouraging social media platforms not to share the story. The Judiciary Committee noted that as a federal court in Missouri versus Biden explained in damning language, the FBI's actions prevented millions of Americans from having a clear understanding about a salient issue in the 2020 presidential election. Although it may be tempting to believe that censorship is the antidote to the fake news problem, allowing powerful groups to decide what constitutes misinformation has insidious consequences and therefore is not a solution. Misinformation tugs at the fabric of democracy. Citizens can lose faith in the political competency of their peers and even in election validity. Even if the vast amount of voters do not believe outlandish fake news stories, they believe that others are influenced by it. All of this information begs the question, what can be done to combat misinformation? Some organizations claim that moderating or using censorship to filter misinformation from online platforms can help curb the spread. However, moderating can itself become misleading and even weaponized against political enemies. Ultimately, citizens must seek out factual and unbiased news when making decisions about voting for elected officials. Looking outside echo chambers created by partisan news stories and doing independent fact-checking is the best armor against fake news.